In this video we're going to talk about structural relations in trees. Now, in talking about trees, it's useful to be able to talk about nodes in relation to each other, and to do this we can then distinguish a number of structural relations. Let's start with a tree. Here's a tree for I bought dangly earrings with shells in Spain. Okay, now the first relation we're going to look at is the relation of dominance. And dominance says that node A dominates node B if and only if A is higher up in the tree than B, and if you can trace a line from A to B going downwards. So if you look at, for example, the AP node, dangly, you can see that it only dominates one other node, namely A. So if you read AP as node A and the adjective node as B, then you can say AP dominates adjective if and only if AP is higher up in the tree, and that's the case, then the adjective, and you can trace a line from the AP to the adjective node going downwards. That works. Okay, let's have a look at the PP node, which stands for in Spain. Now, what does that dominate? Well, it's higher up in the tree than P in NP Spain and N Spain. Yeah. So does it dominate all three? Yes, it does, because if you apply the definition, you can say, okay, the PP is higher up in the tree than P, NP and N, and you can trace a line from the PP to P going downwards, from the PP to NP going downwards, and from the PP to the N going downwards. Yeah, so the PP node, the prepositional phrase node in Spain, dominates all three nodes P, NP and N. Now, when you look at the tree, there's one node that dominates all the other nodes. Can you see which one it is? Exactly, it's the S node, the sentence node at the top. Yeah, so a sentence node dominates all the other nodes in the tree, because if you apply the definition, you find it's higher up than all the other nodes in the tree, and you can trace a line from S to all the other nodes by just going downwards. Okay, so that's dominance. Now, there's a different relation. It's very like dominance, but it's slightly different. It's called immediate dominance. Now, immediate dominance says that a node A immediately dominates node B if and only if A is higher up in the tree than B. So that bit's the same as the dominance relation. But then the difference is if you can trace a line from A to B going downwards and no other node intervenes between A and B. Okay, well, what does that definition do? Well, we just said, okay, the PP node, the prepositional phrase, which stood for in Spain, dominates P and P and N. Now, what does it immediately dominate? Well, it immediately dominates P because it's higher up than P. You can trace a line from the PP node to the P node going downwards, and no other node intervenes between the PP and the P. So that PP immediately dominates P. And the same for NP. Yeah, if you go down from the PP, no other node intervenes between the prepositional phrase and the noun phrase. However, what you then see is that the prepositional phrase node does not immediately dominate the N node, because although it's higher up in the tree and you can trace a line from the PP node to the N node, there is in fact another node intervening between PP and N. That's the NP node. Yeah, so you can say, okay, the prepositional phrase node dominates all three nodes P, NP and N, but it only immediately dominates the P and the NP. Yeah. So if you then look at the S node, we saw just now that it dominates all the other nodes in the tree, but what does it immediately dominate? Only the nodes that you can get to with a line that's not broken by another node, so that means that S immediately dominates the NP and the VP. Now, another way of thinking about immediate dominating is to say that if a node A immediately dominates a node B, then A is the mother of B. Yeah, so that's an easier way of thinking about it. It's like a family tree. Yeah, so the node VP, yeah, how many daughters? Well, there's a node V that you can get to immediately from VP. There's an NP, dangly earrings with shells, and there's the PP in Spain. Yeah, so the VP node has 3 daughters, V, NP, and PP. The NPI has 1 daughter, N. The V has no daughters, yeah, but the word is just a word. The prepositional phrase with shells has 2 daughters, a preposition and a noun phrase. Of course, if you want to talk about the relation between the prepositional phrase and the noun shells, you can also, of course, say that the prepositional phrase is the grandmother of the noun shells. Okay, now, if you can talk about mothers and daughters, then of course you can talk about sisters. And we can say that 2 nodes are sisters if and only if they are immediately dominated by the same node. In other words, if they have the same mother. Yeah, so in this tree you can say, okay, how many sisters does dangly, the adjective phrase dangly, have? Well, there's, the mother is the NP, dangly earrings with shells. Yeah, so the N earrings is 1 sister, and the PP with shells is another sister. Okay, does the P in have a sister? Well, yes, it's the NP Spain. Of course, not the N, yeah, because the N and the P don't have the same mother, but the P and the NP have the same mother, and so they are sisters. Okay.